And we are live. Hello and welcome to the Doubting Thomas monthly recap for January 2023. And it still sounds weird to say that year, but I'm your host, Adam Dowd, and joining me, as always, is co-host Mr. Cliff. How you doing, Cliff?
I'm feeling so fresh and so clean, just ready to get into it.
Yeah.
The first month of 2023.
Yeah, we're 1/12th of the way done with 2023 already. Can you believe that? All we have is the Super Bowl and then like the 4th of July, and then kids go back to school, and that's it. And then we're done. It's going to be great.
Craziness.
Yeah. Oh, shoot. We just said Super Bowl on a live access. We're going to get sued. So this will be the final episode of Benefit of the
Doubt. Hey, we're not aiming to make any money off of it. It's just something that's happening.
That's correct. That is correct. It is a
big
thing.
Game is what we should have said. There we go.
It is a thing that can happen. So, pardon me. I'm sucking on a cough drop that I popped while we were doing our straight out of Nine Inch Nails intro music there. That was like, I started playing that. I'm just like, wow, that kind of feels like the introduction to like Woodstock '94. If you happen to know that deep cut.
But I do not. Although I do love some. I think my memory is more of I remember Woodstock '99 because at the time I had a summer job washing dishes in a restaurant, and so we had a radio on in the background, and that was constantly playing. But,
right.
The '94 it really isn't so fresh in my
mind. So I'm going to be coughing up a storm all night tonight. Hope you don't mind. We're probably going to keep this fairly short because I'm also recovering from being sick for the last 2 days, and I'll be honest, I'm probably going to be sick for the next couple of days too. So that's just kind of how being sick works in my family. But anyway, it's January. What did we do in January? We went to CES, didn't we? Well, one of us did. So that was that's a thing that happened. Did you have any like? I know we talked about it for a couple of episodes already, but did you have any like follow-up thoughts on CES that you wanted to address before we move on to our topic du jour?
So I was just glad to see that, I think that this CES sort of marked the return of maybe was like a milestone for post-COVID. And so there were more people, more presenters, more companies there, I think, than there were previously. So
yeah,
I think maybe everyone kind of maybe still while wearing a mask took a sigh of relief, and so from that perspective, I think it was a very positive thing, and there definitely were some really cool things. I think one of the more interesting things is that CES seems to be replacing like the Detroit Auto Show, for example, as being one of the more important automotive events of the year, because really, electric vehicles have almost become a mobile device, which I guess they really are.
Yeah,
but there's so much technology built into them that you're seeing a lot of presence there from both the big companies as well as the startup companies. So that's really exciting to me. In fact, you you went there gratis of one of the big automotive companies, right?
Yes, I did. VW sent me on over there so I could see the soft launch of the ID.7, which is an electric sedan coming to North America and China and Europe. So they're launching that thing just all over the gall darn place. One thing you mentioned about one thing you mentioned about being mobile devices and being so much more technical these days. As I was editing an article on SlashGear the other day, talking about the top 7, 8, 9, a bunch of car manufacturers that have all been impacted by the chip shortage. And I think I was reading, I don't remember which car manufacturer it was, but there's one car maker that, due to the chip shortage, has like 95,000 vehicles currently built that they can't sell because they're missing chips. They're missing semiconductors, which is just insane when you really dang, man.
Think about the fact too that I know some of the American car manufacturers were actually shipping vehicles without some of the options enabled that that they had been spec'd with because they just didn't have the chips, and so they had to be dealer installed.
Right.
So
Yeah. And Tesla was doing that too. Tesla was
yeah, I think
shipping
so.
cars without backseat USB ports or something. I mean, it was something minor. It was like something like, honestly, who cares? Except for we just bought a $50,000 car and we kind of like it to be done.
Right?
But
Some
no, I
parts
mean,
in a box.
yeah, no, I mean it's something that is common throughout the industry, which I just thought was really interesting. I got to say, like, I don't know how we're going to get out of this. I think because it's not like we're going to need less semiconductors in the future. So like, where do we go from here? I guess is the big question.
Well, so I know that China has recently ended they've opened up the country a little bit more. They've stopped doing the complete lockdown of places that have
Mm,
detections of the virus, and so supposedly silicon availability is going to ramp up, and I think it'll stop having, or we'll stop having so many issues. And I think it's going to take some time, but I think
sure.
going back to CES, I think you do see some optimism from consumer electronics manufacturers because more of them had things to show. So I think they expect availability to be there.
Yeah.
But on the other side of that, I saw the other day that phone sales are on a downward trend. So
Yeah. Yeah, well, and also like, and it's not even just that one. I want to say it was GM that had like 95,000 cars that I couldn't sell, but other manufacturers like Ford, from what I understand, they have suspended all sales on the Maverick and the F-150, like in January for like the year 2023 because they can't keep up with demand. It's a little crazy when you really stop and when you stop and think about it, especially since my wife and I are currently shopping for a car, and that does not bode well.
it does not.
No. So we might have to, we keep telling our kids we might have to ride this one out for a year or so before we can actually pull the trigger on a new car. Just because, right now you're paying so high above sticker that it's a little ridiculous.
I think that's probably smart. I think that the main thing is just to, well, here's the thought, right? If you're talking about
Mm.
electric vehicles, right now you have that tax credit, and I don't know how long that's going to stick around.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
at the
that's
same
true.
time, if car prices come down, then you might not need it as much a year from now.
Right.
I don't know. I don't see
Yeah.
car prices going down that much, though.
No. And actually, getting back to that tax credit, when you think about it, the tax credit is there to incentivize people to buy electric vehicles to be more environmentally friendly. But like all these manufacturers, all these car manufacturers have said by 2030 or 2035, we are not going to make gasoline powered vehicles anymore. So, granted, that's still 8 to 12 years out, and that math doesn't work at all. But still, that's a long way away. So yeah, it makes you wonder how long that tax credit is gonna hang around.
Yeah, I think the higher a percentage of electric vehicles are of total like gross vehicle sales, I think the more likely that incentive is going to go away because
Yeah,
there won't be a need.
yeah, exactly.
I
Because
mean, honestly,
everyone's gonna have. Yeah, pretty
I
soon they'll start giving an ice tax credit for
right,
people
right.
that buy internal combustion engines.
That's true. I mean, I almost wish that they would invest the money that they are throwing at manufacturers instead in infrastructure, so that there are more charging stations because that really is the bottleneck.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but yeah, the charging infrastructure is a major issue, but also the electrical infrastructure in America to support that charging infrastructure is also potentially a problem. So, yeah, we've got a long way to go before we can put this one to bed. But speaking of premature technology, which is it's common in men our age, but speaking of premature technology, let's go to the main topic for the evening, and that is eSIMs.
Ew. I'm just
Now,
kidding.
the reason we're talking about eSIMs is because I had a little bit of a Twitter rant on this about halfway through the month, where I had to. I wasn't on the phone with T-Mobile support, but I was on chat with T-Mobile support for half an hour, doing what a year ago would have taken me 30 seconds to do, and that is to move my iPhone to my secondary number and do a new phone that I got, which I can't talk about, and move that to my primary number. Now, once upon a time, I would have popped up, opened both SIMs, taken the card out, put it in the other phone, taken the card out, put it in the other phone, close it, we're done. I mean, I don't even think that was 30 seconds, was it?
I mean, it honestly takes more time, I think, to power your phone off and restart the phone in order to have it set up the appropriate APNs and everything, depending on what phone it is, I guess. But yeah,
that's the thing. Half the time, I didn't even bother restarting the phone. I mean,
Right.
It was just, they've gotten to the point where you could just pop in a SIM and you're good.
Most of the time, that is true. Unless it's, I don't know. I've definitely, just as an aside, experienced more issues with Chinese market devices, or as an example, like a gaming phone that you sent me just recently.
Yeah,
where
review
I
coming.
actually have to manually go in and add the APNs because I'm using Met Mobile as my review sim.
Right.
Which some of that I think just depends on what your carrier is and as far as what hurdles you have to go through. But yeah, that's absolutely true. I mean, I think I understand why eSIMs are something that carriers want because it just becomes a software thing instead of a physical thing, and there's just on their side less things that can go wrong. But I think you can see how most of the world feels about eSIMs by the fact that North America is the only place. In fact, it might even just be the United States where the iPhone 14 at all
went eSIM only.
Right, is eSIM only.
Yeah.
Everywhere else, you can still get a SIM. Now, it does have an embedded
CDMA.
eSIM,
Excuse me, I'm sorry.
Right. Well, CDMA is not even really the issue anymore because 3G is pretty much gone away.
Well, no, but like around the world, GSM was the technology of choice, and then we had CDMA here.
Oh, it's always something like that. We always, it's like us in Japan always have the weird.
The entire world is using VHS, and we're stuck on Betamax. What the hell?
Betamax, pretty much. Super audio CD.
Now, the one thing that I will say is nice about it is, my iPhone right now, my iPhone 14 Pro, has eSIM data in it for both my primary phone and my secondary phone. So if I want to, I can take my iPhone and switch it over to my primary phone, and bada bing, bada boom, we're good to go. So that's kind of cool. And in theory, going forward, I could spend a half an hour on the phone every single time with every phone that I get and load up both of those eSIMs, assuming the phone supports eSIMs. I can load up both of those eSIMs into my phone, and I can switch them back and forth willy-nilly however I wanted to. But the thing is, that wasn't an issue. That was the same kind of sort of setup that we had with SIM cards, where you could just swap it in and out willy-nilly and not have to worry about it. So I mean, it's kind of nice that you can do that, but I think the process by which you have to go through in order to get it to that point is ridiculous, and I don't think carriers are ready for it.
Yeah, I do wonder how in those meetings that Apple must have had, a year ago or more with the representatives from the carriers saying, by the way, we're going forward with this whether you like it or not, so you need to prepare yourself for it. I kind of wonder what the feedback was. I personally am, while I do have an iPhone that is eSIM only, I'm only had to activate it. I haven't had tried to put it on a different network. I haven't tried to add another number to it. So for me, it's been fine. And I feel like for most people, it's going to be a similar experience because most people
Yeah.
aren't
Oh yeah.
people that are
Yeah.
swapping phones. But I also don't understand
What
why
the
it's
rush
such an
was.
advantage. Well, what
Yeah.
the rush was, why phones need to go eSIM only. I don't understand what the advantage is for the customer, and isn't that in the end what it's supposed to be?
I suppose fewer moving parts. Um,
Well, there's
you know.
speculation that, as an example, with the iPhone, that they want to go completely portless.
Yeah, I don't buy that. They keep coming back with that every year, and I mean, I don't see what the advantage of a portless phone is either. Like, aside from waterproofing, like
Right.
what's
That would
the
be the main thing. I get, and again,
but iPhones are
fewer moving
waterproof.
parts. And I mean,
But-
I don't know if you remember I think it was
Mm,
the HTC U12 or U12 Plus, but it was the phone
yeah,
that had the and actually there were several phones that had but the capacitive
capacitive buttons.
buttons that literally were just little humps on the sides and made it make you feel like you had
Yeah, you were pushing a
you
button.
were pushing a button, and it was not a great experience. It wasn't horrible, but yeah, it was pretty roundly poo-pooed by journalists, for that
Right.
reason. So, I mean, granted, that was like 4 years ago, and
Yeah,
perhaps the
yeah.
technology has improved, and
I'm
the
not so sure.
iPhone, for example, is very good with haptics. So it
Yeah,
and I don't think they would release a subpar experience just because Apple is Apple.
right.
But yeah, again, I just
See, now, like in my world, ideally, the way this should work is when I bring home a phone, any phone, it doesn't really matter if it supports eSIMs. When I bring home a phone, I should be able to load up the T-Mobile app on it, which I have to log in with a username and a password and two-factor authentication. And then I should be able to basically import that eSIM onto my phone through that app. Like, I mean, that's really, I mean, if you really want to talk about the advantages of eSIM, that's the advantage. I mean, that is how you sell this is like, you can pick up any phone, log in with your username and password, use 2FA. You can
right,
require, as a carrier, you can require 2FA in order to, further secure the account. But you just log in with the app and you say, I want this phone to be this number. Bam. And it just does its, stuff. And then, and then it's,
right.
you have
That is
you have the
ideally
SIM.
the way it should work, but right now it's not like that. And I have seen tweets of several people that have had issues with activating their iPhone that's eSIM only and having to get in contact with
Yeah.
customer service and then having to jump through hoops and sometimes being on hold for half an hour or an hour. It actually the process right now. I guess you were on Sprint at one point.
No,
They back and down like the WebOS days.
nope.
So you
No,
didn't
I
have
was,
the original pre?
no, I did not. I was on AT&T first, and then I switched over to T-Mobile because
Gotcha.
AT&T pissed me off.
Surprise, surprise.
Yeah.
But so you activating a phone on Sprint, um, back before LTE was a thing, so it was just CDMA 3G
Mhm.
and whatever their 2G was called. But anyway, you had to put in the IMEI on through their web portal,
Okay.
and
Really? Wow.
oh, it was terrible. It
Mm.
was such a pain in the butt, and it made switching. Well, first of all, you could only use like Sprint compatible phones because of the bands and everything back in the day.
Because
It
they
was
didn't even have SIM cards, right?
correct.
Yeah.
Nor
Okay.
did Verizon.
Right.
And
Because
so
CDMA.
exactly. And it feels like we've gone back to
Mm.
the bad old days in that respect. I mean, it was so nice especially when I was on Verizon at the time, and LTE was a thing, and they started using SIM cards, and you could
Mhm.
actually and Verizon also at that same time opened up their network to unlocked phones.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like a whole new game with Verizon. It was great. It was
Yeah.
magical. But now we're back. I mean, this really feels so much more about like carrier control, right? It's got to be a lot to do with it as far as why it would be an advantage for carriers and why they would um, agree to it in the first place, even though
Yeah.
they don't really have a choice.
Well, and also, like, just activating my SIM originally, I had to kind of trick my iPhone into picking up the right number because the only option to import an eSIM when I first set up my iPhone was to import my number from a different iPhone. And so like I had to take my primary SIM, which I think was in the, I don't know, the Galaxy S22 or whatever. I had to take that out of there, put it into my iPhone, reboot the iPhone so it came up with the right number, and then like restart the eSIM procedure on the iPhone 14. It's like, oh, do you want to import this number? I'm like, yes, I do. Thank you very much. Like I had to basically trick the iPhone into importing the right number, which I mean, it's just,
What a great
again,
experience.
it's it's new, and like I'm kind of on board with it just because I like the idea of being able to have like two SIMs at the same time on a phone, so I can flip back and forth between them. Not that I mean, like even me, the niche case of all niche cases, I don't think I'm going to have to do that all that often.
Right.
Right.
I mean, but a lot of the world already has that with just dual SIM support. It's not like it's some special eSIM thing.
Right. Oh, totally.
And with the ease of putting two SIMs within one phone, and it, just like you were saying, pop it in, and so again, it's not necessarily an advantage. Now we've been talking about Apple, but I know that at least the S22 Ultra, and I'm thinking because of that, probably the S22 and S22 Plus last year also shipped with eSIM on board.
eSIM support.
And I think the Pixel 7 and Pixel 7 Pro also has support. There's not a whole lot of Android phones though that have eSIM support built in already, and so I'll be curious to see what happens with this. This is like the other side of it, right? Like, how long is it before they just completely phase out some support in the same way they would have phased out something like, 3G, HSDPA plus, and all that just gone.
Yeah, I mean there is definitely a concern for that.
I would think it would probably take 3 or 4 or 5 years before they could do that, but I don't know.
I've got my Pixel 6a here. I'm looking. If you have a SIM card, download a SIM instead. So yeah, you can add a number. So the Pixel 6a has it.
Okay, well that would make sense.
Yeah. So, and then actually,
and I know Google Fi supports eSIMs.
I have I've got the OnePlus 10T here for no particular reason. Let me look here and see if if I go to mobile network, no SIM card. It doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't look like this supports eSIM. So, okay, but yeah, I think it'd be reasonable to expect that the Samsung offerings coming out tomorrow, and we can actually kind of use this.
Definitely.
We can actually use this to kind of translate transition over into the Galaxy and whatnot. But yeah, it would stand to reason that those would probably have eSIMs, and honestly, I think it would be super convenient if when I buy the Galaxy S23 Ultra, which I will be doing, it would be great if I could just like install the T-Mobile app and install my eSIMs and bada bing, bada boom, I'm ready to go.
And like you were saying, it is early days with this, and I think eventually that will be more of the experience.
I have to think we will get there. Yeah, I really hope that we'll get there. But it
would be nice if there was like an NFC component where you could just something, just like tap the back of your phone and then do 2FA and it's there.
Yeah. I mean, well, now we're getting a little crazy. Let's not
get
yeah, let's not get too crazy here, buddy.
Let's not get wackadoodle here. Come on, settle down.
Yeah, take a breath there, bro. But yeah,
hey, I can dream.
Yeah, let's why don't we go ahead and transition over into Samsung Unpacked, which is coming up tomorrow. Mm-hmm. Are you looking forward to Samsung's new offerings, or are you just kind of like, eh?
Yeah, I think if we go by the old phone, I guess, model or saying of which year is the tick and which year is the talk, I feel like this is the talk year. I think this. I feel like these devices are going to be very evolutionary rather than revolutionary.
Oh, sure.
I mean, last year with the S22 Ultra, for example, that was the model where they added not just S Pen support, but actually had
The
embedded.
the
It really
yeah, the
was a note,
the
right?
garaged one, yeah.
And so I guess the one major thing that they're adding this year is that new Samsung 200 megapixel sensor. So I guess in that respect, it's definitely more than evolutionary. But at the same time, I mean, they already had the crazy 10x super zoom,
Right.
and I have a feeling it'll take a while before that image sensor gets really dialed in to be as good as it can be.
Yeah, I think what I would rather see, like the 200 megapixel sensor, I guess fine. But I think what I'd really like to see is a larger zoom sensor, like a larger sensor for the 10x, because that thing is dark. Like you cannot use the 10x zoom like in anything other than perfect lighting conditions. So like I would love to see like a bigger, like a bigger aperture, bigger sensor size, something like that, because I want to say it's like f over 2.4 or something like that. It's yeah, it's not great.
It is not.
um so like I would like to see something there. First of all, I think 10x fine. I have no problem stopping at 10x, and if we never get past that, or at least not for several more years, I'm totally down with that. I'm totally fine with that. But I just think I would like to see Samsung improve that 10x zoom sensor, just to really like to put it in hockey terms, really step on the other team's throat, and say, we're going to win this game right here, right now.
I mean, but the S22 Ultra's cameras were already pretty friggin' fantastic. I mean,
right.
As long as you don't mind the saturated look, that Samsung look is what I would call it,
that Samsung
and that's a matter,
look.
which is just a matter of preference, right? But I mean, I had the S22 Ultra, and okay, so here's actually what I'll say. Depending on what happens tomorrow with the announcements, I probably will be trading in my current phone and getting an S23 Ultra.
Ditto.
So you ask how I feel about it. I mean,
yeah,
I'm not super excited, but at the same time,
here's some money, Samsung. That's how we feel about it.
I guess,
Well, I mean, really, when you think about it, especially considering where you and I are, honestly, no offense, more me than you, but when you consider like where we are in this industry, it makes sense to have like the top tier Samsung phone, the top tier Apple phone, and the top tier, I would say either Google or OnePlus. Pick one. Like
more so now, probably Google, but
probably more Google. Yeah, but it makes sense to own those three, because honestly, those are the three kind of benchmarks by which it also makes sense to own a foldable, I think, which is not something like, I know you don't have one. I still have the Flip, but I would like to get.
I did have one for about a week, and then
yeah,
I said,
yeah.
Thank you.
No, I want to, and that's like the one part where I'm kind of lacking a little bit. I want to get some kind of like book foldable, just so I can remember. I mean, it was 2 years ago that I did the review on this podcast for the Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 2. And they're up to 4 now. They'll be up to 5 by the end of the year. So like, I want to get another book style foldable at some point. But yeah, so I mean, that's kind of it. Those are like the ones that really make sense. Like you could take or leave the Xiaomi's or the Vivos or the Realme's, or the ones that are sold pretty much exclusively overseas. But in the US, it makes sense. Excuse me. In the US, it makes sense to own probably at least those three.
Yeah, from a journalist perspective, for sure.
Yeah,
I don't think for your average person, unless you're bad with money.
Oh, like, no. Unless you're Cliff.
Unless you're me.
But
no one would ever make the mistake of calling me an average person.
No, that's definitely true. Like I think people listening to this podcast probably wouldn't be a terrible idea to have maybe 2 of those. I mean, the main reason I buy the iPhone every year is because it's like having the other team's playbook. I am an Android person. I like Android. I prefer Android over iOS, but at the same time, like iOS is very significant, and you need to stay up with the trends.
With the sickness.
You need to stay down with the sickness. So anyway, I'll tell you what, my voice is just about to give out.
You're fading. Yeah.
So,
is there anything else that we haven't covered from January? I mean, it's January's. It's kind of like CES, and then everything gets quiet, and then I guess actually for you, it's getting ready to be crazy because you've got OnePlus, Samsung, and then MWC Mobile World Congress coming up. So yeah,
and I am still chasing down a bunch of vendors from CES, in terms of just Slash Gear stuff. So yeah, it's a fairly busy time for me. The only other thing that I really wanted to talk about was just a little bit of housekeeping. I think Cliff and I kind of decided that going forward, we are going to do our best to do about a video every 4 days or so. So whether it's going to be a review or a Beyond a Doubt or a Doubting Thomas or something else, we're gonna Garmin over Fitbit, dude. Anyway, we're gonna shoot for about a 4 to 5 day what's that word that I'm looking for where it goes pattern 4 or 5 day
not Paradigm?
No,
that's model.
Words. It's words. It's going to take us 4 or 5 days to figure out what word I'm trying to say. But anyway, about 4 or 5 days.
The minute you sign, I forget. I remembered it.
About 4 or 5 days between videos. So just hang out. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to smash that bell, and you can see all the new videos as they drop. Now with Cliff thumbnails as well, because he's kicking
new
those.
And improved.
He's kicking those. He's kicking them down. He's taking them downtown like Charlie Brown. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
But yeah. So again, my voice is about to die. So that's going to do it for this episode of the podcast. Please consider subscribing to the podcast if you enjoyed it. And if you really enjoyed it, I would love it if you would write a review of the show. And if you're watching this on YouTube, click that subscribe button so you can be notified of new episodes and reviews as they drop, and live shows like this one, because we put this one out to the public and we had a bunch of people stop by and say hi.
Yeah,
if you want some early access,
by the way, we appreciate it.
Absolutely. And if you want some early access, jump onto Patreon at patreon.com/benefit of a doubt. I'd like to thank co-producer Cliff for all of his hard work behind the scenes, but most of all, and as always, I would like to thank you for listening and for giving us the benefit of the doubt.